And now, you can start the thing. We have a whole thing that I'm always just talking randomly, and then she's like, could you pause and do that? Which I just did that, but now that I'm talking to you randomly, she's going to have to do the same thing to actually start the thing again tomorrow. That's to goes into the talk about, Jan's made this to where we can now have it for download and streaming and everything. You're going to be seeing that with all of the workshops coming up, and so we're going to have the 3 levels where you can come in person, download it, or do all 3. If you did not get the download and you want it afterwards, get hold of us and we can work that out as well. The reason that I'm bringing that up is ever since we've decided to start doing that, I've decided that handouts are pointless. You should take the notes and then go back and watch the thing over and over again, because if you're like me, you'll get a whole lot more out of it than just reading on the page trying to remember what's going on. Things on a page brings us to the next fun part of this. This is the outline of the workshop that I thought I was going to be giving today. It's in a nice folder that says Spirit Guides. And then 3 nights ago, I was watering my flowers and I heard very loudly in my head, you're not doing a Spirit Guide workshop, you're doing an Allies workshop. That is not the same thing. And so all this stuff starts coming into my head and all of this. And we're going to talk about some of that happened because of the watering of the flowers. And we're going to cover a whole lot of ground and material here. And one of the things I found interesting in it coming together, putting it together, because it did kind of come together on its own. All of the different tools and stuff that I have gathered here, I would get them for one example of something I was going to do, and I was like, but that also applies to this, and applies to this, and applies to this. And then I'd look at something else, I was like, yeah, but I also use it that way, and I could use it for this type of guide, and I could use it for that thing over there as well. And the reason that that's very important for us all to get right off the bat here is that we need to understand a couple things fundamentally. What we can draw to us, we also have the capability of sending out from us. When we're talking about allies versus spirit guides come along and they guide us. They give us directions, they give us insight, they give us messages, they talk to us, they tell us stuff. Allies will go out and fight for you. Allies will go out and make something happen on your behalf. Allies can be an energy that come and they support you by giving you a wonderful bit of information. They might support you by going out and clearing the path or confronting something for you, speaking to somebody else's higher self on your regard, anything of this nature. So we've got to get to this idea of the sending and the receiving that's there. And then we've also got to start thinking about the idea that there are many different types. And that's a lot of what we're going to break down today. And so when we go through this, some of you have come to a lot of the workshops, you're going to see a lot of recognizable stuff, and you're going to see how it all does actually begin to interlock and tie in together, which it should. It's a wonderful moment to say that your spirituality, your beliefs, and your common sense thinking should all match. Those actually shouldn't be separate things. You shouldn't be, here's who I am in my thinking, everyday reality, and here's who I am in my spirituality. Those should not be two separate things. And so when we're talking about dealing with the allies, dealing with the non-physicals, we need to be thinking about them always in regards to physical application. We want to think about the idea of the bridging of the two worlds. Part of shamanism, part of the big deal about shamanism, is living in both worlds at once. Living in the physical world, living in the spirit world without having to shed the physical body to be in the spirit world. And that access of going in between is a lot of what happens through these tools, through the process, through the awareness of these, all of that. All of that to be said, before we get into talking about the different types and getting into all the different practices, we're going to start. Everybody stand up just a second. If we're going to have a workshop about the allies, then it makes no sense to actually start the workshop without calling in the allies. And we want to think about the idea that right now we're calling them in so that all of your allies, all your guides and your angels and your loved ones on the other side and all the people that we talk about, all of them are going to be coming in and whispering in my ear, oh, this one needs to hear this, and that one will get something out of that, and say this that way, and make eye contact with this person when that part's being done. That's what we're calling in for my part of it. For your part of it, you're calling in all of the people that stand beside you and support you, that are whispering in your ear, here's what he actually means by that. Here's the way you could apply that to your life. Here's the situation that you could take this home and use it in. And so we're going to start off by calling all these people in. So right now we've got, I don't know, however many people this is. Let's take that up to, I don't know, a couple hundred here for just a second. So everybody just sort of find a nice calm space. Close the eyes if you want to. You can bow the head. If you have a way of calling in your guides, go ahead and do that. Grandmother, grandfather, spirits of the four winds, powers of the seven directions, archangels and angels, spirit guides and animal totems, ancestors and bright shining ones, ascended shamans, masters, yogis and gurus, illuminated spirits one and all, we call to you. We welcome you. We ask that you would join us within this space. I'm going to strike this gong 7 times, calling out to the 4 directions, to the Mother Earth, to Sky Father, and to our own presence within, asking for all of the guides, all of the allies, all of those spirits to travel through time and space and to be here with us. Aho Ado, Wantanka Asa. Taking a few breaths, just opening up your mind, opening up your feeling. Maybe you see the presence there, maybe you feel it, maybe you simply acknowledge it mentally. Allowing ourselves to feel this room becoming very full with all of our allies. And then taking a brief moment of gratitude, thanking them for being here with us. Just consciously deciding to open yourself up to their presence. Then we can open our eyes whenever we want to. Go ahead and have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. There are a lot of things in this coming together, because like I said, this came together just a couple days ago in the way that it's being presented, and I'm going to chuckle a lot through it because there's a lot of, now let's stand up and do this, now let's focus here, now let's sit back down. We're going to feel very Catholic by the time we're done today. We call them allies because that's the tradition, and it holds the energy of their purpose in our lives. They're here to help us, to protect us, to advocate for us, to guide, to advise, to support us. Think about what it means to be an ally to somebody that you care about, and you'll understand how they actually work in our lives. That's what they do for us, but we need to start to understand the different types that are there. And this is my breakdown. You might have a different way of viewing it, and that's totally cool. This is the way that we're going to be able to get through the information today. The types that I have listed here are ghosts, angels, elementals, animal totems, spirit guides, loved ones on the other side, and then what I'm going to shortcut and call deity, even though my notes say great mystery, great spirit, because that's the way I view God. And so we've got to think about the idea that all those different forms there are various types of allies, and in my mind, they're not actually interchangeable terms. And that's where a lot of people get confused, or a lot of people will even disagree with me. And again, you should follow your tradition, that's fine. The other one that's there, and I just like to throw this in as a side note without a big exercise or anything, if we could agree that I am a soul in this physical form, and I am offering you guidance right now, would that not make me a spirit guide? And so when we're talking about reaching out for our allies, reaching out for our spirit guides, reaching out for those great spiritual teachers and leaders and mentors to give us advice, look at the person that you're sharing a cup of coffee with. Look at the person that you're sitting there having dinner with. Go to your best people. My mother, guarantee you, she's a spirit guide. Not just for me, it's what the woman does everywhere. But I've had front row access, so it's been pretty cool. But the idea that we're only thinking in terms of all this out here, we need to bring it right down here, because in doing that, we acknowledge that we're all spirits inherently. One of the cool things about that statement, not so hard to think about two spirits talking to each other, now is it? If we acknowledge that we're a spirit ourselves, we just bridge the gap from, oh, we're a lowly human, trying to talk to those divine spirits. Now, I'm a spirit trying to talk to those spirits. I'm just doing mine through a physical apparatus. They're doing theirs through a non-physical existence. Now that we've connected those dots, we can proceed in an entirely different fashion than we would have otherwise. And we get to the point where we don't think about things being dissociated. I've said for years, I do not believe in the supernatural at all. I believe that it's all natural, and some of it's pretty super, but there is no supernatural. It's all very natural, normal, regular occurrences, and the more normal and less spectacular you make them, the less you need them to be spectacular. then it really becomes everyday commonplace stuff. Seems like a side note for what we're talking about. We got to talk about ESP for a minute. Extrasensory perception. It's a really, really crummy way to label something that doesn't actually work that way. It's not an extra sense. It should actually be elevated sensory perception because it comes through the 5 physical senses. Usually it comes through visual, auditory, or physical touch or sensation. Sometimes smell, sometimes taste. People don't always believe that, but we even use it in our language. Something smells rotten with that, or that left a bad taste in my mouth. That's an intuitive response to the situation that you were just in. But if we go back to those main senses, what we call ESP is taking them to a non-physical quality. Clairvoyance is seeing things without the physical eyes. Clairaudience is hearing things without the physical ears. Those are not different senses. Those are the senses that we're very used to. They're elevated to a different way of using them. And the big difference between that, or the whole reason I'm talking about that, is everybody, well, I'm not a psychic. How am I going to talk to my spirit? You don't need to be a psychic. You don't have to predict the future to talk to your spirit guides. You don't have to predict the future or do a tarot reading to pray to great mystery, great spirit. You don't have to do any of those things to speak to your dead loved one that you have an automatic inherent connection with. You don't have to have that going. What you do have to have is expanded perception beyond our physical limitation. And when we start looking around and we start seeing the synchronicities, we start seeing the recurring events, we start seeing what I like to call the glitch in the matrix. I swear to God, the other day I went to the gym. I look over and there's this black guy on this weight machine, and he's got these great red pants on, and the only reason I mentioned him being black was I was like, that looks so cool with your skin tone. And I was having this whole moment. I was like really digging this guy's vibe. And I turn around and the exact freaking guy's standing over here. I'm like, that's a glitch in the matrix. There's no way. I have suddenly slipped in. I'm Keanu Reeves. They were twins. I went back to doing my workout. I look up, they're standing there right in front of me talking to each other about where are we going for lunch after this. The fact that I had that moment of awareness, and then call it peripheral vision, call it intuition, call it ESP, call it whatever. I was immediately drawn onto the other one so that I had that entire thought process. Most people, when I said they were actually twins, I think, oh, well, then nothing actually happened, Shane. Yes, it did. My senses drew me here and then drew me there and bore an entire thought process in my mind that got me thinking about things that I'm even bringing into this workshop right now. And so when we begin looking for those things, expecting those things, reaching for those things, then I think that it becomes more the way we live. It expands our perception. It allows us to begin to experience those things much more. A lot of people, because of what I do, they'll be like, oh, you met your spirit guide and you started channeling things to people right off. No, I didn't. First one I ever saw was I saw an image of a woman who was sad that looked like my mom in a mirror in a hall tree. That was when my mom told me about her mother killing herself and showed me the picture of her and everything. I was like, oh, okay, well that makes sense now. The other one that we used to see was a little purple light that just would move around. We used to call it cursor because it was back in the 80s and computer cursors were the big deal. That was the big interaction with that guide. We acknowledged it as a guide. We get to bob up and down for yes, move side to side for no. We had entire conversations with the thing. But we would not have had that if we weren't acknowledging that that little light over there, maybe that is something. Or the way that that animal's acting seems like it's trying to tell me something. Oh, because it is. And when we get to the point where, this happened just like 2 days ago, somebody said to me, but I think I'm imagining these things. Of course you are. How do you think that it interacts with our cognitive brain? Everybody acts like imagination is some terrible thing. We need to go back to teaching our kids to imagine things. We'd have a better world. Everything that ever exists that you think is cool, somebody imagined it before it existed. Imagination is an awesome freaking thing. And so when your spirit guides tap on that little part of your memory that triggers this thing in and your imagination kicks in, that is intuition. If we get to the point where, I love this statement, it takes 2 eyes to see. Intuition and imagination. Those are the two eyes. If you can get those two together, then you begin to perceive and to experience and to feel and to connect, because you're living that way in an everyday capacity. And that matters because most of us feel like we fail in connecting with our guides, our angels, our allies, or whatever, because we do it in a moment of crisis. We do it when we need something. We're, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Please help me. And then we're in this emotional wrecked space that we don't know what the hell's coming through anyway. We've already distorted it. We're looking for the answer that we want that makes things easy, and we're not even listening to what they're trying to show us or to nudge us or what they're putting right in front of us. If we get to where it's an everyday thing, then it's going to happen on the bad days, just like it's happened on the good days. And we remove all that emotional garbage that blocks us from it, and we get a lot deeper kind of a connection that's there. If we get to the point where we think that the spirits are all around us, it takes me another thing. This was so many years ago. I remember somebody came and sat down in my office and they go, my spirit guides quit talking to me. I remember word for word. I was like, that's their job. And they go, oh, yeah, but they're not talking. I was like, they'd be fired. No guide, no pay. This is what they do. And the idea that our guides aren't speaking, this would be like, I think God's quit loving me. The eternal embodiment and essence of love is quit loving you. Okay, yeah, that's right. You're the one that they're not talking to. When we get to the point where we realize that maybe we're not listening right, that they're always talking, God to me is the creative force that is always broadcasting everything all at once, and we just have to tune our frequency into what part we're trying to grab out of it. It's not that God isn't speaking, it's that we haven't dialed in our tuner right at all. And we begin to shift that awareness and realize that, oh, they're always there. Actually, this is another one from recently. Did a guided meditation to connect with a spirit guide. And this person comes out of it and they were just like this. I said, what? And they go, there's actually somebody there that cares about me. First of all, I'm amazed that that experience happened, because how shitty would it be to go through life thinking there's nobody that cared about you? That's worth the entire moment. But the idea that people are living without the awareness that we're constantly surrounded by people that love us entirely, that we have these beings that are nothing but love and support. I spend a lot of time alone by choice. I'm never alone. Never. I might choose to spend time away from physical people. I might choose to spend time with what seems like isolation. I'm never alone. In talking about this, this leads into our discussion of this exercise. One of the things we're going to talk about, will be the last one that we talk about, is our loved ones. We'll save that for later. But going into that, and Jan knows this story, because I've wrestled with those over the past month in particular more than any other time in my life. The vast majority of people that I have that are in the spirit world hated me. My family, certain acquaintances that I've had. And when I say that, I'm not saying that as a casual statement. My grandmother Knox wrote a letter to my mother about how she hated me for being gay my entire life before she died. My Uncle Chris told me to my face, called my husband and me faggots to our face. We never spoke again. He died. My Uncle Scott, same thing. I could keep going. What's the point? So I was like having this crisis of faith moments, like, okay, shamans are all about the allies, and that usually means your ancestors, and well, mine are all a bunch of jerks, so that's not helping anything. What am I going to do there? And so just the other night, everything's the other night, because I'm telling you this all just like together. The wrestling with it has been going on for about a month or two. I was standing in my room, and I have a dual altar. I've got like the altar table, and then I've got a stand here, and it's got a mirror, because I think you should always have a mirror at your altar so that you bow to yourself. And as I was standing there looking at that mirror, I dimmed the lights, which is a great thing, because in my house you actually talk to the house, which is a great thing to get used to. I was like, hey, Google, dim the lights. And the reason that's important to say here is because without even thinking about the tech side, I was speaking out loud what I was doing. I was verbally expressing what I was doing. I was dimming those lights with intention because there was a candle there and I was staring into that mirror. And I asked, show me who actually is around me. Now the interesting thing about it was I saw my guide, that made sense. I saw an entire ark worth of animals, that makes sense if you know me. And then I saw a figure that I could not place, I didn't know who that little old lady was. I could not make sense of for anything. And so I said, who are you? Sweetest voice in the world. Don't you remember me? I'm your Aunt Nora. I'd probably cry. I was a kid. Little kid. I remember she had 3 trees in her front yard. My brother and I would play like it was a gas station. Those were the pumps. That's the memory. That, and she always had Kool-Aid cold in her fridge. These are the memories of her. I don't have much more than that. I think she made a good cheeseburger, as I recall. But that's about it. Doesn't change the fact that she was standing there. Doesn't change the fact that I knew who she was. Doesn't change the fact that if I opened up that extra sensory, elevated sensory perception, I felt the love. And I was like, I've been so busy looking at the ones that are a bunch of jackasses that I haven't seen the ones that are standing there the whole time trying to help. And I think we've all got to get to that. You don't know how many times in that room I will say to somebody, I've got this person that's coming through, and I'll describe them, I'll give them a name. Your grandfather John, who drove a tractor, is trying to say, well, yes, my grandfather John did invent John Deere tractors, but I didn't like him. I don't know why he would come through. Did you get all those details? Doesn't matter if you get why they came through, they're here. Ask them why. Here's the guilty confession. When Scott's stepdad died, my grandfather Knox appeared in my yard. I was watering the flowers. He appeared and I turned, he was standing right there and I was like, no. And shut it down. Because I wasn't ready to look at all that. I wasn't ready to deal with all of the stuff from the family. And now that I'm looking in the mirror, I'm like, I should probably look in the corner and see if Grandfather Knox is hanging out there. He died before I ever came out of the closet. He probably never had a chance to hate me. He probably still has all the love going. He probably got the spirit before all that other stuff happened. And if I'm going to be fair, all of those other people are in spirit. Maybe they've learned something. And so the idea of looking into this mirror, who's there? That's one of the exercises I want you to do at home. And so the key, we can't do it here. I can't hold up a mirror for everybody and little candles and all that. But the idea of just staying in front of the mirror. Now here's the trick, and I want to put this out here because I think it's an important factor. The candle is to give you a focus and to add a dim light, because I think it's best if you dim the lights for this exercise. I would say a prayer over the candle, asking that only the spirits that were there to benefit me would reveal themselves. Because in this moment, I asked the question, who is around me? And I actually saw one that I've worked to get rid of since then. It wasn't a person, it wasn't anybody I know. I don't know what the hell it was. It didn't look like it belonged. And so when you're doing this, you want to set an intention. You want to set some protocols. I think a simple prayer, I think a nice little candle, light you an incense, a little smudge, whatever's going on, just making sure that you're setting that criteria. My mom and my aunt used to be a whiz with a Ouija board. Most people are freaked out by Ouija boards. Hope it's not you, because there's one right here. My mom and aunt used to use one all the time. Always a little white candle on the edge of it. Mom would say, that's so nobody bad can come through. To tell you how good they were with it, one of the biggest ones I ever predicted, I was about to turn 16, and I wanted to know what my first car was going to be. And when they got the Ouija board out and it spelled out pink UFO, it made sense on one hand, but I didn't know what car that was going to be. Then my Aunt Deb wrecked her car again, decided she was going to sell it, and at that point my folks bought me a faded out Beetle. It was red until it set in the sun. It was a Volkswagen Beetle that had turned pink. It looked like a pink UFO going down the road. Their description of it was absolutely perfect. And when that clicked, we're like, oh my God, it does work. And those moments where I'm talking about the validation, that little moment, a lot of people are like, it wasn't actually a pink UFO. No, but we got it. We could see what they were trying to do. We connected that. We'd rather validate it than shut it down. In doing your mirror exercise, a lot of that is just so you can see that you're not alone and you can practice that expanding out. There's an entirely different mirror exercise that people do, which is to see who they were in past lives. And that's the other reason I'm saying do the candle and set your strong intention of what it is you're doing, the expectation of what's going to come out of that mirror. Because otherwise you could end up looking at somebody and you realize that it's just you from a different lifetime. And so we want to set that strong criteria. The other one on my list, next one on my list, is ghosts. Ghosts are here just because one of my favorite things to do is debunk stuff about spirituality. Ghosts don't talk to you. Ghosts do not actually haunt anything. Ghosts do not make your keys disappear. Ghosts do not wake you up in the middle of the night scaring you. Ghosts don't do any of that stuff. Ghosts don't think. Ghosts don't have consciousness. Ghosts are not sentient, conscious, awake beings. They are repeating loops of energy and nothing more. And so when we get to this idea, the easiest explanation, if your little sweet mailman every day came up to your porch and put the mail in the thing, and one day did that and had a heart attack and died right there on your front porch, it would not be odd for somebody to see every day at that same time that mailman walking up there and doing that. They couldn't talk to him. They couldn't ask him questions. They couldn't whatever. That's why when you talk about the haunted places, when you hear about a hotel or a retreat or whatever, the well that's haunted, they always tell the same story, don't they? Well, the lady in white walks along the wall every night at midnight. Well, she's not doing that because she's got no imagination and is just stuck in a habit. She's doing that because that's all she can do, because she's not a she anymore. She is a thing that's imprinted on that particular energy that's there. Now that can happen because of extreme traumas. You see a lot of recurring ghost stuff with suicides, because somebody is in a very traumatic state of mind when they do that. They aren't in a right state of mind entering into the spirit world, and that leaves a big imprint on that space. They can do it in a trauma. Somebody actually is murdered, or there's a very long illness that makes them really struggle through something that can do it. Or most times I think it's because of the actual place. There are things called ley lines. They're energetic lines that intersect each other in various places, and those intersection places are called vortexes or portals, and those places are basically hot spots for spiritual activity. And when you have that happen, it's easier for a ghost pattern to happen, or it's easier for actual spirits to come through, which brings us to disincarnate spirits, which is a fancy way to say what most people mean when they say ghost. Because a disincarnate spirit is somebody who has died, who has shed their physical form, but they haven't truly gone on into the spirit world. Now, your loved one could be fully in the spirit world. They come to visit you, totally different thing. We're talking about the ones that people refer to as earthbound, the ones that are stuck. I have people every now and then will message me, my mother died, I think that she's stuck. Can you help to send her on over? And a lot of times the answer is, no, you're stuck and you're just not letting go with the mourning. And then sometimes like, oh yeah, she is. I'll be right over. We'll work on that. Because both are possible. And so the disincarnate spirits, if you have something that you would put in the haunting category, because the first step is, are they good or bad? You know, little Joey that happened to die at 8 years old that likes to play in my yard, what do I care? I don't need to banish him. I don't need to chase him off for any reason. And then whatever the icky, creepy thing that's under the stairs, yeah, I might want to get rid of that. And so we first decide what we're talking about. If it's one of the good ones, I say make friends with it. Casper the Friendly Ghost, they call him friendly for a reason. We want to get rid of the icky ones though. Smudging, banishing, a good candle. We get stuck on that sort of thing. Call somebody in to work on it. Drumming. Prayer is a wonderful thing. When we're talking about this, I'm referencing negative spirits. The one thing that I wish more people could understand, I think that demonic energy is very prevalent. I don't think we can talk about angels and not talk about demons. I don't think we talk about good and not talk about bad. I don't think we talk about helpful spirits and don't think there's some that are just total assholes. And so when we get to that, we've got to understand that they cannot affect us, they cannot touch us, they cannot possess us unless we become that physical portal for them to come into this world to begin with. Major drug addiction, super big alcoholism, major traumatic event, major illnesses that allow us to get weak enough. Imagine if, this isn't totally accurate, but imagine if your aura is the shield that keeps all that out, and whatever happens diminishes our aura enough that it can get in. When people say, how do I get rid of this negative spirit? Start living right. Get right with yourself. Get to where you feel okay with yourself. Don't give it anything to hold on to. Give it nothing to cling to. No insecurity, no doubt, no fear, no self-judgment, no self-loathing. Get rid of all that stuff, and those things can't hold on to you. Same thing for a space. Oh God, when was that? A couple years back, got asked to come because of a haunted house. I get to the house, we go through, smudging, doing the regular stuff, all that, and then I'm like, what's upstairs? Go upstairs. They've got this god-awful, ugly little table that has this Ouija board like stuck to the top of it. I open it up and there's like a doll head and a rusty knife and obviously ritual, like really hodgepodge thrown together, low budget ritual stuff, but still ritual kind of stuff in a Ouija board sitting up in this little cubby hole in the attic. And I was like, well, we could have simplified this. If we'd started here, I just told you to throw that away and we'd be done. I don't need to smudge your house. We don't need to bless things. We're not going to need the holy water. We don't need any of this. We ended up needing every bit of that because they were actually negative themselves. But that's another story. The idea of get rid of the thing that gives it an anchor is all you need to know about getting rid of negative spirits. That's really all you need to know. Give it nothing to hold on to. It can't hold on. Now, the unfortunate part about that statement, it's not just the ghosts. The disincarnate spirits, the 80% of what we're going to talk about today. They didn't move your car keys. They didn't hide something from you. Oh my God, we've got this little old man that's convinced that everything that's ever disappeared in his house is because some spirit has moved it. And I talked to him for a while. He's a super, super sweet man with dementia, and that's all it is. And we can't convince him that nobody's stealing his stuff. But the idea of physical, think about this, we're a non-physical being. By definition, we're spirit. Just shortcut, what type? Spirit. This is physical. To be able to manipulate this enough to move it or affect it, we just had to talk about how we have to elevate our senses to be able to even begin to interact with them. And then people want to tell me that they're running enough mojo through on the physical plane that they let their dog out when they weren't looking, or that they moved whatever in their house, or the whatever. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying it's an extraordinary circumstance because of the division between the worlds. If you get to where you have a super strong connection, maybe you can broaden that out and open it out to where they have more of a presence in the physical world. Those things are more likely to happen then. But when people come in and they think some random spirit, I keep saying move the car keys, it's an easy one to think about. That spirit that has no tie to you, that has no reason to be connected to you, that you've not reached out, that you've not established a vortex for, that you in no way have given an anchor into the physical world, has moved your car keys, or you're forgetful. And I think when we get to that point of bringing it all back down into that common sense, now, where are my car keys? Now let's go to spirit with that. And even think about feeling them taking you by the hand and leading you over to it. I'm totally down with all that. That makes perfect sense to me. But the idea that they're going to drop them into your hand or the whatever. I remember years ago, it was, God, long time ago. 20 some odd years ago, 30 some odd years ago. I was filling out a form. I think it was an unemployment form actually. Back when you actually had to do that stuff. And I needed a number 2 pencil. The famed number 2 pencil. Every ink pen in the house was there. There was no pencil anywhere. And Mom, it's always Mom, she's like, well, ask your guide where a pencil is. You know, and I'm thinking there's probably one at the store. But she's like, ask your guide where a pencil is. Okay, where's the pencil? And I'm sitting there, and I find myself just staring at my stepdad's recliner. I was like, would you do me a favor and get up? Tipped up, there's a pencil right there. At no point did I hear in my head, there is a pencil under the recliner. I did know that I'd asked for it, and I was expanding out thinking, trying to broaden my perception, where could it be? And then I noticed that I was staring at the recliner. A lot of times you ask spirit where your phone is, you can't find your phone, and then you'll be talking to somebody, and all of a sudden your hand just reaches over, and then all of a sudden you got your phone in your hand. That is unconscious intuition. That is your guide channeling through the answer of what was there. And in that way, they affect the physical to a great degree. You guys know dowsing pendulums? I upset so many people with this. You're moving it. You're the only way that it can. You're the only one connected to it. You're moving it. But I'm not moving my hand. Yes, you are, to a very, very tiny degree. But I thought it was spirit. It is. Spirit is interacting with that part of your brain that is triggering a very subtle movement through your entire body that is causing that thing to move. It's much like, I hope I don't regret this. If I want to knock this over with my mind, I guarantee you I can. I'm not going to. But if I were to sit here and focus on that thing that I'm not focusing on right now, and I'm saying this so that I'm not concentrating on it, it would fall over. Right now, spontaneously? God, no. But I would bump into the table and knock it over, or one of you be walking across to the bathroom, a shirt get caught on it, or earthquake, something falls from the sky, whatever. The things that we're trying to make happen, the messages we're trying to receive, things we're trying to manifest, things we're trying to cause in our life, they're going to come through the physical form from that non-physical originating place. That's why, again, we've got to get the as above, so below, the physical, the non-physical, all those parts of ourself firing off together. Great way to do that, angels. Angels are a thing that a lot of people don't expect me to talk about, because the minute you say angels, everybody is like, but I don't like James River Church. I don't care. I'll almost bet you there's not many of them over there. That was just mean. And how I actually feel. Angels appear in all religions. This is the part you got to get. They appear in every religion and outside of every religion. That's why I feel like I can poke fun at Christianity, because they're in all of them. There are Buddhist angels, there are Hindu angels, there are Muslim angels, there are angels in every single belief system that's there. Go back to the ancient Greeks. They talked about all of the oracles. Who was talking to the oracles? The spirits that were there. If you get into the idea of angels, I think, you may disagree, this is where a lot of people really veer off from me, I don't think they were ever people. I don't think that your dead loved one is an angel. I think that they are your dead loved one. I think that an angel is an entirely different race of beings. Now, I get what people mean when they say grandma's an angel now. I get that, and that makes perfect sense, and I wouldn't want you to change that wording. But for the sake of understanding, I think that angels and archangels are actually two different things. I think that archangels, it's right there in the word, are archetypal energies, archangel, archetypal energy, and they preside over specific vibratory frequencies, energies that can be used for all sorts of different things. The Archangel Michael is my personal favorite. I was supposed to be named Michael. That's a whole nother story. This is a giant figure in gold armor with a huge flaming sword that defeats demons. Yeah, I know. Everybody wants to think about harps and gowns and singing and, streets of gold. Angels, by every definition, throughout every culture, and when I say Michael, he appears in other religions in other forms. All of them do. And I mean, all the way up to Jesus and the whole group show up in every religion everywhere, because they're archetypal energies that serve the people in that different region, different area. And I think when we talk about the archangels, we need to realize they're available to everybody. This is... Think about that as the broadcast frequency that's available to everybody. We can all tune in and watch the same show on Netflix at the same time, even if we start it at different times. It's a really weird analogy, but if you think about archangels, that's their availability. It's always on. You can stream that at any given point. And it may appear to you as a consciousness, because it is, but it's more going to appear to you as a very powerful energy for whatever is there. I think it's Raphael is big on healing. You've got Michael that is a big protector. The four archangels, that's why we have these here, these little angel figures in different stones. At my house, mine aren't as fancy as that. I had a great aunt growing up that she was involved in, it wasn't Amway, it's whatever the knockoff version of Amway is. And it was through her church, and so we would get really weird, like, religious board games and stuff as gifts for her on holidays. And we really didn't understand them. But there were four, the figures that you got were archangels. Those were the figures she moved around the board. So somehow that thing made that all the way to my present house as an adult. No micro hoarding here. I put one on each corner of my yard so that I have the 4 archangels presiding over my house. I buried them in the actual corners of the yard and did a ritual to picture a pyramid being formed by their energies, going up over the house, going down under the house, so that my house is protected, so that it's safe, so that it holds a certain energy, and so that I am watched over by the archangels themselves. In my way of viewing it, it's so that the dominant, prevailing, desirable, preferable energies, sacred spiritual energies. Not that I think there are 4 dudes with wings standing over my house watching it, but that there are these energies that are being infused into that environment that's there just by doing that. That would be one example of using archangels. Now, angels, the regular garden variety of angel, I think that they're much more like what we call spirit guides. I think we all have a guardian angel. I think that phrase has made it into our consciousness for a reason. I think that people talk about that regularly for a reason. I think that we may have any number of angels appear to us for various things. My friend Des years ago told a story about her first trip to New York. Never been in a subway at all. She said she got there and she was very attractive and very lithe, I believe is the word, very thin, very delicate kind of a person. And she was there by herself. I don't remember the circumstances of it, but evidently a group of young gentlemen were eyeing her in not so favorable of a way. And she would describe things that way. That's Des talking. And I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, I didn't know if they were going to rob me or rape me, but something was going to go down. And she said, it's the weirdest thing. You're literally surrounded by 1,000 people and you realize that you are completely alone. Let that soak in. Let yourself feel that for a minute. She said, so I started walking and I didn't know where I was going. And I didn't know where to go so that I would feel safe. And so I went around this big pillar thing and I turned around to see if they were there, and there was, she's this little tiny, so she goes, and there's this huge black dude standing there. And those guys just stopped and he looked at them like this. And they turned around and walked away. And I took a breath like this and I went to thank him and he was gone. And she's like, I ran over, she goes, you couldn't miss this guy. He was easily, and this is the part I love, she's like, he was at least 2 foot taller than anybody else that was there. I was like, are you listening to yourself? Do you hear what you're saying right now? 2 foot taller. How big was he? Think maybe it was an angel? The reason I believe it was an angel is I think that when the angels show up, the laws of physics and reality go out the window. I don't think they're from here, and I don't think the rules here apply to them. I think that angels have the ability to suspend time. I think the angels have the ability to warp what we consider reality. I think the angels are trusted with maintaining the integrity. Now, we all have free will. Don't get it confused. They're not just the good guys. They're trying to make us all get to heaven. That's not the deal. They're trying to preside over humanity to make sure that we grow, to make sure we evolve, to make sure that we lean more towards our spiritual understanding of ourselves. And while I don't like this statement, I found it to be true. Most people learn through hardships. I would like to take this moment to point out to you that you can learn through fun and good things too. The day that I had that aha, changed my entire life. I was like, I had some great thing happen. I was like, oh, I just learned a lesson there. Oh my God. I don't have to be hit in the face with a cast iron skillet to learn something. I could have a pleasant experience and actually get something out of it. This is freedom. Angels, I think the one thing we're missing is we don't feel worthy. We think of them in this elevated capacity. And we think that, like archangels, well, I shouldn't pray to Michael. What if somebody else needs him? He's there too. He's cool like that. He's hanging out with them while you're asking for help over here. What about that angel that I asked to come and help me? Here's the one problem with that phrase. What about the angel that you asked to help? Why didn't you ask for 10,000 angels? Why didn't you ask for all of the angels? Why don't you ask for a battalion? They talk about them as an army. Why don't you ask for a battalion or a legion of angels? Why is it you don't think you deserve that kind of help? They're willing to give it. And you're going to judge on their behalf that they shouldn't. Here's a dozen roses. Oh, but you shouldn't have. But I did, and I got them for you. That's the way we treat angels. I want that help. And here we are, and we will help you. Oh, but I'm not worthy of that. We've got to get to where that deserving is there. Again, spirit, born of all creation. If that's not worthy, I don't know what is. And I mean that for everybody. Like, seriously, everybody. The angels, when we start working with them, we have this stuff here because there are oracle cards, there are tarot cards, there are books to connect with angels, there are figurines. These I think are wonderful if you're into angels at all. These are wonderful. You can put them in your purse, you can put them anyway, stick it on your dashboard. I think that anything that allows you to connect with it. In the shamanic terms, that would be a fetish. A fetish is a symbol or an object that is sympathetic or reminding of something you're trying to connect with. And so anything that is an angelic symbol. If you're working with the angels, let's say that you called in 10,000 angels. You know, because that's a good round number. And I need a lot of help most times. Every time I saw the number 10,000, I would thank the angels for showing themselves to me. Every time I saw a white feather laying on the ground, I would think, there's an angel walking out in front of me making that happen. Every time I saw somebody with a little angel pin, where normally I'd be like, oh, I don't like church, I'm going to look at him and go, that's an angel right there. I asked for him to be here. Thank you. And the more you get to where you're looking for that stuff, again, those are all physical examples. Because most of us aren't going to see the revelation of that angel in front of us and allow ourselves to connect with it that way. We're going to see it in those subtle ways. It's going to show itself in those subtle ways. All of the guides work this way, but angels and straight up spirit guides, more than any of the other ones, work through every available source. I'm asking my guardian angel to help me. And my guardian angel looks down the road and sees that I'm going to be in a wreck. And suddenly I have a flat tire. And I'm going to say thank you for the flat tire, because I'm living in awareness connecting of my allies, and I'm going to know that saved me from something worse down the road. Or that moment where you just can't seem to get everything in the Jeep at once to leave home. I'm sure I'm the only one. There's a reason for that. It's not that you've just suddenly gone brain dead. It's not sudden onset dementia. It's not anything. It's just that something, your guide, your angel, time to go to the car. Nope. Oh, well, I forgot what I was doing. And now I'm 10 minutes later than I was, and I'm 10 minutes later than the semi that would have smashed into me. When we get to where we're living that way and we're thankful for those things, it changes two big deals. It takes us into a greater connection with our guides, and it teaches us to not react to the surface of the moment. You get cut off in traffic and you see it as a blessing, you're going to be a whole lot less likely to have a heart attack in your old age, or young age, or right freaking now. You've got to get to the point where you allow yourself to see the blessing that comes with the burdens. And those of us who have been through big hardships, you know, like all of humanity, we should be the point where we can see that, because all of those heavy, hard things, if you look enough, you'll find that little jewel in there. You'll find that amazing piece that's there. Might not change the rest of it, but that will also exist there. The angels, when we're watching for them, I look for everything everywhere. Think about when you're standing in line at the grocery store and some lady says something about an angel and you don't even hear the conversation, you just hear the one word that was there. How is that not your angel saying, I'm here with you? How is that not letting you know? You weren't trying to eavesdrop on the lady. You just happened to hear that one word out of the whole thing. That's taking you into that awareness of what it is that we're looking for. When there's a difference with our animal totems. I'm trying to think of my wording here because neither way sounds right in my head, so you guys are going to have to work with me a little bit. We should always be polite in spirituality. We should always have manners in spirituality. The woman who taught me would always say, manners count even in the spirit world. We should say please. We should say thank you. We should ask for that help. With angels, I think it's very important to ask, to beseech that help, to reach out for it, and in a reverent fashion. You know what I'm saying? Why wouldn't you call on 10,000 angels? If you're going to call on 10,000 angels, I would expect for you to have the moment of reverence and to bring the weight to that of I'm asking for 10,000. I am asking in the nicest of ways for that big of a help. I am asking for the archangels to preside over my home. When we get down to animal totems or something like that, I might straight up command a totem to do something. Because that's where I figure I am in this hierarchy that we're talking about. There's a rank in everything. And so when we get to that, we're talking about the upper echelon stuff. And so we want to ask for it in that way that we would feel good receiving it. We don't want to be that demanding, pouting, temper tantrum child that expects the angel to come in and do something. We want to be that reverent person. And even though I'm saying they exist outside of our religions, I'm not actually anti-religion. I'm anti-ugly religion that hurts people. I think that if you are Catholic, get you a Catholic prayer jar that's got Michael on the surface of it. You think I haven't burned 100 of those in my life? Get you something that represents your faith. If you want to connect with the angels and you happen to be a biblical scholar, get your Bible while you're trying to talk to the angels. Use whatever it is that works for you. I don't think that anything we should be taking here or that I'm presenting here should be taken in place of or instead of or saying anything's wrong. I think we should take these things and add it to our own foundational understanding and expand it out. If our sensory perception within our religion is this big, I've been asking for expanded sensory perception the entire time. Doesn't mean you have to get rid of that. Just because you see something intuitively doesn't mean you gouge your eyes out. It's those delicate ways I put things that most people enjoy. If thine eye offends thee. Oh, it's a different workshop. The next one that we've got are the elementals. So talking about allies, most people wouldn't think about elementals, because normally we're thinking spirit guides. I just went from angels, totally non-physical beings, to the elementals, which are actually the physical embodiments of energy: air, earth, fire, water. These are the actual elements of creation. Air is our thoughts, earth is our words, fire is our actions, water is beliefs. And in these elements, we associate them with the directions and with the idea of creation itself. Not only do these energies exist, but they also are powerful spirits. The Native Americans would actually pray to the four winds. The four winds wasn't just that there were four different winds, it was acknowledging the four different directions. The south wind would actually be fire. The west wind would actually be water. But those were the winds, and they would talk about wind because they were talking about the spiritual, non-physical component of that thing blowing into our life. And so air would be on the wind, or fire would be on the wind, or water would be on the wind, or earth would be on the wind. And those are the reason we talk about those four winds. The idea of these coming in, there are embodiments of them like wood nymphs, the sprites, the fairies, the elemental creatures that are out in nature, the fairies that represent all of that. Those are what we've seen in mythology and through history and some of the various religions. What I want us to focus on even more than that are the actual elemental things. So this one cracked me up when I wrote this. The way that they interact with us. I'm pausing to look around at the median age of our group of women. Lane, you're excused. The hot flash that takes us down for just long enough to be aligned with the perfect opportunity that we would have missed if we hadn't paused. How's this for some preach? Don't clutch your pearls and shake your head at me. Talking little old lady stuff. I look back and Jan's just like... Think about what I'm talking about, though. Okay, I'm going to go to the... Sit down for a minute. Okay, I'm good. I can go again. Surely we've all experienced that in some form or fashion or another. Isn't that the element of fire doing the same thing I just talked about the angels doing? That hot flash is the element of fire.
Sorry. From a very experienced hot flasher, which thankfully they are gone. I wish I had this knowledge then. I put that together.
I love that. It's like, and now you tell me. The idea here, though, what I love about this, the part that is so important, is yeah, we can relate them to mythical creatures and stuff, but I want you to get the idea that those elements are available to us at all times. And those keywords that I put with it, which if you come to a lot of the workshops, you'll hear this over and over and over again. Thoughts, words, actions, beliefs, or emotions, depending on how you want to look at that. You'll hear me repeat that over and over and over and over again. Divine feminine, divine masculine. These are the 6 directions, 7th is within. Everything I do is 7-direction path. When we get to this, those elements, and trust me, I'm not going to ask for elements, I'm going to command elements. They are there for us to be used. So this version to the archangels and me wielding some fire to burn away the opposition that's blocking me from what I'm trying to do. Me jumping into that element of water so that I can have that intuition and open up through my emotional self to understand what it is I'm trying to do more. Allowing myself to really get grounded, place my feet down on the earth, barefoot, and having those words come up into my mind of what I'm trying to say. Let me give you the example. It's where I started the entire workshop. Right here it says, I have to share this part because I love it. Explain how you connect with your guys. I was talking to my phone while I was doing this, while I was channeling this stuff, while watering my stuff, and my phone decided that my guides is my guys, and I kind of like that. So my guys, I'm out there and I'm watering. This is now my meditational relaxation time, right? This is my big thing that I do. Every evening I go out, I water, that's my time. And as I'm doing this, I'm still here. At that point in watering, in my head, I was on about page 3 of the Blue Notes. Water, 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 water. And then it hits me, you're not doing spirit guides, you're doing allies. Water, water, water. I'm starting to have all sorts of intuitions. Ooh, there's the breeze. Then I'm looking up at the stars, which are all just little bits of fire. And all these elements start swirling, and I start really paying attention. Expanded perception. This isn't just the breeze blowing. This is spirit trying to talk to me. This isn't just me watering the flowers. This is me making a connection to the element of earth, and I'm connecting with the element of water to do that. And I got into where me watering flowers, it's always been my meditational check out, blank out time. Now I'm suddenly in this ritual calling in the elementals, and all this stuff's channeling through about what I'm supposed to do. I'm making notes. I just got, this is so cool. I love sharing this, and it makes me look like an idiot, and that's why I love sharing it. I do talk to text a lot. I didn't know you could say new paragraph, and it'll actually jump down to a new paragraph. Did you know that? It'll actually drop an indent. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Whoever the hell I was channeling did. I have never done that before in my life. I'm like, blah, 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 new paragraph. I go back and they're all in these nice little sections. The elementals are tech savvy. The idea of connecting in with those. Now, none of that was a big image. None of that was some fairy coming up and tapping me on the shoulder. There wasn't some water nymph that sprung out of my sprayer. There would have been really cool though. There wasn't anything like that happened, but there was the moment that I was like, no, wait a minute. This isn't just the wind, this isn't just the water, this isn't just the stars, this isn't just the earth. These are the elementals, and I believe in the elementals. The elementals talk to us. The elementals are a real thing. I need to listen. And I've been saying that a lot, and I want to clarify that a little bit. When we're talking about that ESP, and I'm jumping back a little bit because I should have said this at the beginning, so it'll be fun when you find this in the middle of the recording. You gotta lean into the way that you normally relate and respond to things. You have to figure out which one of your senses is dominant. I think most of you at some time or another in this room have done this exercise with me. That's why we're going to gloss through it. That's why I didn't actually make the notes probably. If you were to describe where you live to a total stranger, or if you were to describe this experience right here and now to a total stranger, listen to the way you describe it, and you will understand what your dominant sense is. Let me give you some examples. I'll use my house. If I were to say, It's a fairly small house in a tract center with a lot of other houses on it, and it's kind of a beige color. Then you would know by that that I am what's called claircognizant, because I describe that in a ridiculously literal, factual, no embellishment, no feeling, just the facts, ma'am. That's the way I described it. If I would have said, oh, the flowers out front are beautiful, and the minute you walk in, the floor looks like this, and then you see this on the wall, and that picture that's over there, and all that, that's very visual. And so that would be the way that you interact and describe things. If you ever come to my house, the one thing that you will notice very, very quickly is that it is never quiet. My husband's this loud too. All three of my dogs are this loud too. One of my birds is this loud too, and the other one's louder. It's never quiet in my house. I finally figured out that's part of my insomnia. I wake up in the middle of the night because like, oh, the house is quiet. And I can actually enjoy it for a moment. I can actually hear my thoughts instead of everything else that's going on. When we get to where we understand the way that we interact, the way we describe things, the way we process things, the way we would say something to somebody else, then we understand what our dominant sense is. If you describe things visually, you could expect to receive messages visually in the most dominant sense. If you are very subject to auditory things, which most of us think we're visual because we live in a visual society. We all watch TV, we see a million images, we see each other right now. We think that that's the big one. I think a lot of us are a lot more auditory than we think. I think everybody's an empath. I mean, dear God, everybody's an empath and everybody suffers from being an empath. Let's just get that one out of the way. Oh God, I feel all this terrible. Get some better friends. I mean, if you're an empath and the only thing you have to say to me is about all the terrible things you feel, get around some different people and feel some good, for the love of God. Auditory is the big one though. Tell me who in this room doesn't have the song that makes them cry every time they hear it. Tell me who in this room doesn't have the song that makes them feel good every time they hear it. Tell me who in this room doesn't know that one person's voice that from they know exactly who it is and can zip right into that moment. We're all extremely auditory in the way we relate to things. You know the other one that's really big that we don't think about is smell? I know exactly what my great-grandmother's house smells like right now, and she's been dead for 30 years. I know exactly what that house smells like. I know exactly what my mother's perfume from childhood smells like. I don't know how they figured this one out. Somebody must have channeled some dead guy, but they say that smell's the last sense that leaves you when you die. Last thing you're aware of is what you smell. It's very profound, and it's very much related to memory. Memory is very much related to intuition, because our guides, our allies, will push the button of a memory because it's very closely related to what's going on in that moment. In the elementals, last thing I want to say about them, and then we're going to take a brief break, is that, in my thing, I have to tell you the other part. While I was watering and all the ahas and all of that sort of stuff, I have a Black Panther totem. I also happen to have a black cat. He came with the house. The day we pulled up to look at the house, there's a black cat sitting in the driveway. I was like, oh great, I'll take the house. The guy's like, do you want to look at it? It's like, no, my Black Panther totem's there. I know it's the right house. We've lived there 12 years, and so has the cat. Sebastian's been with us, but he's been there longer. We're in his house. As I'm doing all this and having my aha, and I get to that moment, and I'm just sending Jan a message. I'm breaking from my whole thing. I'm like, cat comes up and just rubs against my leg right in that moment. I've been out there for close to an hour at this point. At the moment I was like, I get it. Here comes that Black Panther rubbing up right against me. Validation from another one of my allies that I was finally paying attention to the elemental ones. So before our break, we got to do a quick exercise, and I'm going to have to pick up speed so we can get through the last of this. Let's all come to standing for just a moment. And if we can, we'll all face the direction where Jan is standing over there. Close your eyes for just a moment. Take a couple of deep breaths. Remember what I said about using your imagination. So if you feel like you're creating what it is you're experiencing, that's actually okay right now. I want you to imagine the air. Think about a gentle breeze. Allow yourself to imagine what it would be like to feel the air brushing over the skin. The actual sensation of that element of air blowing, touching the surface of your being. Imagine it picking up in intensity just a little bit. It's still a nice, gentle breeze, but feeling it a little bit more strongly now. And then on your next breath, as you exhale very, very slowly, imagine feeling that breeze passing through you so that the wind is no longer blowing on you, it's blowing through you. Now imagine that breeze turning you into air itself. Feel yourself becoming very light, very airy, very free. Maybe beginning to feel like you float, that you drift like a cloud. Allow yourself in every single capacity, whether you see it, feel it, hear it, simply know it, that you are the element of air. Taking a nice breath, let's turn to the right and face towards the windows. And allow yourself to shift from the element of air to the element of earth. Maybe you picture a particular stone or a mountain. Maybe you feel roots growing out of your feet. Maybe you just feel the weight of gravity and the firmness of the body connecting to the floor beneath you. Maybe you can imagine your entire self turning to stone. Feeling heavy and weighted, grounded, secure, protected. Allowing yourself to feel anchored into that physical form. Take a nice deep breath, not just feeling the earth, but becoming one with it. Let's turn to the right again. Focusing on the element of fire. And as you take your slow breaths, I want you to imagine a white-hot spiritual flame that's burning inside of you. It's burning away the impurities, the darkness. Imagine your own light beginning to expand out past the physical form. Allow yourself to be illuminated within and without. Let yourself see that fire as our ally, our friend. Realizing that the only thing that the fire will destroy is that which no longer serves its purpose to us. But mostly, it will give us the raw energy, the light, the guiding light that we need to be able to achieve the things we want in our life. Focusing on that fire for just a moment, take a nice deep breath. Exhale very slowly. Turning to the right one more time. Think about the element of water. Rivers and creeks, puddles and streams, oceans and ponds, lakes, rainfall, the dew in the morning on the grass. Allow yourself to not only to see it, to feel it, to connect with it. Let yourself feel the flow. Just like you did with the air in the beginning, allow yourself to feel the flow of water. Imagining what that would be like, to be one with that flow. To allow yourself to feel what it's like for the river as it winds around through its different passages. And then if everybody would open their eyes and look towards me for a brief moment. We'll turn and face this way. Take your feet wide apart. Bend the knees just slightly. Drop the arms to the side, but open just a little bit. And then looking up, we open the mouth. This is grandmother pose. We've opened everything we can. The great feminine is the divine receptive energy. And then we come to center, bringing our feet together, standing up tall, closing the fists, making ourselves tall like a tree to honor grandfather pose, the divine masculine. And now watching for whoever's beside you. Open this up like a big star. And imagine that you're pulling all those elements from everywhere. Mother Earth, Sky Father, all of those four elements, pulling them into the center of your being. Bring them in. Now set an intention, whatever it is that you want in your life. What do you want the elemental allies, the elements of creation, to help you to manifest in your world? then forming the image, the thought, the feeling, the words of whatever that is. Now take the hands and those same elements and begin to radiate them out into the world, broadcasting that out. And then just knowing that whatever it is that you put out there is going to come back to you. That took us all of a minute and a half, and we connected with all of the elements, with Earth Mother, Sky Father, all of the aspects of creation that could be there. And so next time we're stuck, next time we need the allies, next time we need guidance, next time we need to manifest something to happen, acknowledge those 4 directions. Acknowledge those. Think, air, earth, fire, water, mother, father, bam, make it happen. It can actually be that simple. Let's all take a little bit of a break. We'll jump right back in here. This next half of things, we're going to get into, I don't know if I should rate things, but we're going to get into the stuff that I think most of us really think about when we're talking about allies, spirit guides, that sort of things. What we've got still to talk about for the most part is animal totems, what we actually refer to as spirit guides, and then our loved ones that have gone on. And I think one of the things that we're getting ready to do here that's very important, I'm going to be showing you certain rituals, I'm going to be showing you certain practices, and just like the one that we did, it's not about mimicking the way that I put it forth. I'm giving you an example of things, and what I want you to get is that you could repeat it exactly in the way that we're talking about, or you could really make up your own version of any of that. Okay, come on across here, you're fine. People love to see you. We're going to talk about animal totems now. And animal totems are absolutely one of my favorite topics when we're talking about the allies. I am a giant animal person anyway. I just described to you the small zoo that lives at my house. In validation and in cool things that let you know that you're on the right track, I'm putting together a thing about the allies, and I'm branching out and saying that there are different types. There are spirit guides, there are animal totems, there are angels, there are this, there are that. Today, this comes in. Tammy brought me this. This would be a Native American, which one of my guides is very definitely a Native American. And one of my animal totems is a turtle, and one of them is a bear. And so when she told me about this and she brought it in today, I was like, yep, that's 3 of them right there in one place. And when you're getting ready to do a workshop on the allies and somebody comes in and sits down on your yoga mat, like the physical embodiment of your allies, you kind of think you're getting something right. And the reason that I even point that out is that would be the same to me as when I was talking about the angels finding that white feather. To me, that'd be the exact same thing. When we get to the talking about the loved ones, you find that penny or that red bird flies across your path. Yes, that is what we're talking about. But it's the validation. Right now, me telling you all about this, even putting this out here, building it into the workshop that's happening today, that's me validating that message was sent through. And when I say it's going to be sent through the path of least resistance, she worked a garage sale this weekend to help a friend and found this thing. A message from Spirit coming in from helping a friend do a thing with a garage sale and happening to see a thing that would match the thing that was going on. That's the sort of stuff I'm talking about with the synchronicity and all of that. Animal totems are giantly important, and I think one of the main reasons is they're easier to connect with for people because we don't expect verbal communication. We don't think that we can hear our guardian angel because they're not talking to us. We don't think we understand our spirit guide because they're not giving us a lengthy dissertation on what it is we need to do. An animal shows up, we don't expect them to give us a speech. We don't expect them to say a single word, but we know that they've got a message. We know they've got a meaning. We know they've got a purpose. And so now we've stepped into an entirely different relationship with an ally, and I think it's one that's easier. I think when we let go of things having to be in words and we start looking for what does it mean or represent to me, that statement is huge. Well, I don't think that my guide's talking to me in my language. Well, what language do you think they're talking in? They're speaking in the way you can understand it. You're not trying. You got to get to where with the animal totems, you look at the inherent quality of the animal, you look at the way that it lives, you look at the characteristics of it, you look at the element that it exists in, and all of these things are going to tell you different stuff about them. If we're trying to connect with them, we might look at, are they a predator or are they a prey animal? That tells you the dynamic that you have in the situation that you're dealing with. Be more aggressive, be more passive. Allow it to come to you or go out and get it. That's the difference between predators and prey. When we look at, is it an air animal, an earth animal, a fire animal, a water animal? People are like, there aren't any fire animals. Yeah, they are. Foxes are on fire. Have you ever seen them? They're red. Mallard ducks actually shine in the light. There's an iridescent, fiery quality that comes off of them. Salamanders live near extreme heat. There are all sorts of things that actually embody that element of fire. It's probably the lesser one, but it is embodied there. If you get lucky, you get something that's like 2 or 3 of them at once. Mallard ducks. They walk on the land, they swim in the water, they fly through the air, and their feathers shimmer with that fiery quality that's there. They embody all 4 elements in that moment. And so looking at your animal, what qualities does it possess? What elements is it from? Where does it naturally live? Is it a predator? Is it prey? How does it act? That will tell you every single thing you need to know about it. You're wondering, how do I need to act in regards to this relationship? And the only animal totem you see is a skunk. Then you probably need to make a big enough stink that that person just gets out of your life. That's what I mean about the common sense approach to it. People look at me, well, I've been really trying to figure out how to just push through this thing, and I keep seeing a rhinoceros. I don't understand how that's supposed to give me some high, lofty perspective. It's not. You're supposed to plow through it. Don't learn, just go. Oh, everybody thinks you're supposed to learn something all the time. No, sometimes you're supposed to do. Getting to where you can actually study. The Ted Andrews books, Animal Speak, Animal Wise, all they're great. You know why they're great? He used to work in a zoo and has a degree in animal husbandry, and he studies the way the animals act. That's how he describes them. One of my favorite ones, I love this, gnats. Gnats are wonderful animal totems. Gnats are beautiful, wonderful, amazing animal totems because they tell us to enjoy the sweetness of life before it totally falls into decay. That's when they show up, right? Right before you decide you're either going to throw the bananas away or make the bread, that's when the gnats show up. And so it's telling you, get the good out of something before you just discard it and let it go. That's a wonderful totem. We can all learn from that. Mosquitoes, beautiful totem. Represents actually drinking from life. Actually taking the life force energy into you. That's what our blood is. Take it into you and allow yourself to be invigorated and charged by that life force energy. It is also a pretty good totem if you're trying to figure out how to be persistent about things. If you want to not give up, mosquito totem is a great one. They don't ever give up. They only know one thing. You just keep going. I've talked to people, I remember years ago I had a lady who was going to be in a court case, and she was very afraid because she's going to have to be across from her abuser. And this wasn't thought, this was pure spirit. And I was like, let's conjure you up a bear totem. You ever seen an insecure bear? I've never seen an insecure bear. I've never seen a bear that's afraid of anything. So when you think about him, I want you to imagine this giant bear standing there as your protector. And you're not going to be afraid of him at all. It didn't occur to me that the Missouri State Seal has 2 bears standing there looking at each other. She walked in, sat down, and looked up, and there was that big image. And when she told me the story later, she's like, and I just sort of cocked my head over and looked right at him. That's because she connected with that totem. Was there an actual bear standing in that room? Not at all. Was she able to connect with that bear's energy? Yes. So when we're talking about our animal totems, yeah, study it, see what it represents. That's the message it's trying to tell you. The predator, the element, all that sort of stuff. The qualities that they have is what I mean about ascending things. It will not surprise you to know. We all have chakras. We all know chakras. I believe that we all have an animal totem that resides in each particular chakra that forms our inner totem pole. And I've known mine for a long time. They're tattooed on my leg. It will not surprise you at all that my throat chakra is a bear. You guys hear me when I'm in a good mood. You should imagine how loud I can growl when I'm mad. I can roar. I think that it should have been a lion possibly, but bear works. And the idea of that is, yeah, that is actually the energy that I embody when I send that out. Because when I get to that level of volume and anger, it's not just auditory. There are claws coming at you, trust me. And that is for defense. That's for moments that aggression is called for and needed. That's me embodying that totem and taking it in there. One of my other ones, talk about the two that are here. We did that one. This one, anybody that knows me very well knows that I can do this. I can be fully engaged. Give me another 300 people in this room. All you'll get is more sarcasm and me louder. That's all that happens. The message still the same. And then I will find a moment later tonight or tomorrow, and I won't be around anybody or speak at all. I will go into my shell. And when I'm in my shell, I will do everything I need to so I can come back out and be this thing for people again. And I honor both parts of that, because if I don't do both parts of it, one of them will blow up. I will either run away and hide and never come back out, or I will do this until I burn myself up and become a very bitter person doing that. I found the way to balance the two things. I think we should all do that. Finding your animal totems to work with them, things like fetishes. Here's a little bunny. This one, we've got a snake coming out of a lotus. This one is the raven, which is very big to me. You can see that it's very important there. This is one of 2 raven tattoos. The other one's on my leg. This I brought out because I wanted to show you an exercise of something, and I was kind of chuckling about this. I'm doing this in a different order than I thought I was going to. Remember when I said don't be afraid of Ouija boards? This is the one I made. You don't have to be afraid, because the one I make has a symbol of protection on the back side of it that is to keep negative spirits from coming through. And the really cool part about that is it also serves as an intention board that way, to where you can build the energies that you're talking about of focusing on air, earth, fire, and water. These are the same crystals that I use in those positions every time and have for about 30 years now. And then let's say that I wanted to call on my raven, and I decided that in putting together an Allies Spirit workshop, I never thought that I would actually have a $100 bill as a prop for a lesson that was there. The reason that we have a $100 bill is because they're my favorites. So if we were to take this $100 bill, and we were to roll this up like this, and we were to take a sacred hair tie. What makes things sacred? Believing it. And we were to bind those two things together, so that there's now a $100 bill resting on the back of this raven. And we were to put it in the center of the elements of creation. And then we were to take, available in the Sage store, a raven drum. And we started, first, I'm going to call the raven to me, is the intention. The drum is reaching out, calling the raven in to be here with me to land. Then I'm going to use it and send it out, with the intention that it knows what it's looking for, and it's going to bring it right back to me on its back. And I'm going to tell it to tell the entire flock to do the same thing. And I'm going to watch as $100 bills just start flowing into my life. A lot of people will be like, yeah, I guarantee you, check with me a month from now and I will have at least a couple of stories about specific $100 bills that showed up, I guarantee you. One of my favorite ones was years ago when I was with Steve. Short version of the story is I cleared off the entire coffee table, got out the Monopoly game, and took all the $20 bills and covered the entire table with it. Lit a candle, said a prayer, and let it go. 20 minutes later, my boss called me and offered me overtime that had never happened before. We decided we were going to paint a bathroom. Every single thing was on sale. Every client, this is the best part, every single client, because I worked on donations, paid me in some configuration of $20 bills. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, everybody, I had a stack of $20 bills by the end of the week. And then Steve gets a call from an old roommate that says, you know, 2 years ago when I moved out, I didn't pay you for some of the bills. Let me know what it is and I'll send you the money. When the hell does that happen? go do your thing. Getting those little fetishes and giving them an assignment, or getting that little image and totem that allows you to connect with what it is that you're doing. This drum, I said, Tracy, grab one of the drums. And she started grabbing it. I was like, no, I need the one with the bird because that's my totem. And so even this, as a way to call in. We're talking about bridging the gap between the physical world and the spiritual world. Sometimes we have to build that energy. And so we might sit and do this for, I don't know, 10 minutes or an hour and a half. And in doing that, we're just sending out that beacon, calling for those allies, giving them the energy, creating the energy to bridge the physical and the non-physical so that those connections can actually happen, so that we can actually come together, so that we can tell them what it is that we want them to do. Being able to send and direct them, command them. This one I think is Ganesha, isn't it? Yeah, that's Ganesha. Ganesha, a lot of people would think, okay, well, elephant totem. Fair enough. From the neck up. Him, to me, would be a deity totem. We'd be back to going to the big kahuna God part of everything that's there. The animal totems, when you're working with them, trying to shape shift is one of the other big key factors when we're talking about embodying their qualities. Shape shifting would be the way that we do that. And so if you want to discover what your totems are, and I was going to take us through this, I'm going to offer this to you and you guys can work on this on your own because I want to get to the other two. You want to put yourself in a meditative space. We can all just visualize this real quick. Go ahead and close your eyes real quick. And imagine, see it, feel it, simply know it. Imagine that you're sitting on the grass, but that you're near water, that from where you are you can see a cave, and above you is blue sky. It doesn't matter what the grass looks like, it doesn't matter what type of water. We want there to be a cave, whether you see it or simply know it's there, and the sky above, clouds or no clouds, that's your call. Now I want you to ask for an animal totem to appear to you. In your own mind, simply asking for the animal to reveal itself to you, and I want you to ask, where am I drawn to? Am I drawn to looking up into the air? Am I drawn to the cave? Am I drawn to the water? Or am I drawn to the grass? Then being aware of where that animal is going to come from, ask again for the animal to appear to you, and allow a silhouette, a shadowy figure, that slowly begins to take form and shape to appear there right in front of you until you finally see an animal that is standing right in front of you. Take a few breaths and allow yourself to see in complete and total detail everything that's there. Where it came from, the color, the shape, the form. Allow yourself to know what that animal is. Now a couple more breaths here. And then ask the animal to give you its attributes. Imagine your feet shifting into the form of the feet, or maybe even fins of that animal. Allow your arms to shift into the front legs, or maybe the paws, or maybe the wings. Allow the body to shift. Think about your face. Allow your face to begin to shift. Are you covered in hair, or feathers, or scales, or skin? Allow yourself to simply feel what transforming into that animal would be like. And then think about embodying its qualities. If you have claws, think about your ability to dig or to defend. If you have fangs, think about your ability to bite. If you've got wings, to fly. If you've got fins, to swim. Let yourself think about the qualities that you have. Are you a predator? Are you a prey animal? Place no judgment on any of it. Just allow yourself to understand what the qualities of that animal represents to you. And then just go ahead and open the eyes. Now you'll notice today we're doing very quick meditations, right? Because we got a lot of material to cover, but also because I want everybody to get that nothing has to be overly complicated. We all think, oh, I want to connect with my animal totem. Well, I need to build a bonfire and I need to fast for a week and then I will go into 3 days of prayer. And the people that did this, the cultures that did things that way, they had nothing else to do. You could take a week putting together a ritual because what else were you doing? You're sitting in the dirt. We've all got busy lives. We got stuff to do. We need to be able to zip in and zip out. We need to be able to connect in the moment. And while I think that taking the time is a wonderful thing, I'm a big advocate of taking time. I think the reason people don't eat good food, they don't take the time. I think the reason people don't enjoy their life, they don't take the time. But I also think that we don't have all the time in the world to waste on techniques. We need to get to where, if we're living in expanded awareness, then it should be easy to click in like that. If it wasn't easy to click in like that, then that's not a failure. That's an awareness of, I need to practice my ESP. I need to practice my being fully present. I need to practice listening to what's going around. I need to trust that there is something going on. Step into that awareness, it all begins to shift automatically. Animal totems do not have to be the physical thing. If you want to use the embodiment, I've got animals tattooed all over me. I've got figurines of different animals, teddy bears, stuffed animals, a picture on your phone. I've got a buffalo totem, great, put it right there. Whenever you feel like you need that little extra juice, just open up your phone and there's your totem looking right at you. You're literally carrying it everywhere with you. Getting to where we have these connector points that go with it and taking the time to do something that might add some energy to it, gonna do a lot with it. Spirit guides, you know what we would have all thought the workshop was actually about? Spirit guides is what we're actually up to now. These are non-physical beings that I think have been human. I think they are actually experts at the human experience. I think that these are souls that have evolved through their own personal lifetimes up to the point where they're qualified to actually lead and guide people on their soul's journey. I think that they are evolved to a point where maybe they're one step closer to the God source, the center of creation, the whatever you want to call that thing. I think that through that, they fall into two main categories. We're getting ready to use Shane terms again because it's the easiest way to break it down. I think we have the chief of staff, which is a wonderful joke for me because mine's actually Native American, and sometimes I see him holding a staff. And the other is all the rest of them. Those are the two categories. And when I'm saying that, all the rest of them I usually refer to as special agent guides. So our main guide, chief of staff, that guy, you know, these are the terms you don't read in other books. The chief of staff, that's the one that was there before you came into this world. They're there every step alongside you. When you die, probably the first thing that you're going to see. This is what I think most people call their guardian angel. I think we've got an angel too. But I think we've got a guide that is there. And if we were to think about division of labor job descriptions, I would think the angel is more to guard over you and the guide is more to guide you, would be the way that I would look at it. Guardian angel, spirit guide. If we even look at the words, it begins to make sense in that way. And so when we're talking about this chief of staff, mine's named Takanaw. I first called him Thor, because that's how I saw him, because we were studying that in school, and I thought that was cool, but there's also this thing that showed up and talked to me, so that made sense. And then it evolved to the point where I see him dressed in two different ways, and sometimes he's carrying a tomahawk pipe and sometimes he's not, and depending upon how he's dressed and the way he looks, I know how serious it is. I know if he's just coming to hang out or if we got some serious work we're going to do or whatever's going on. Sometimes I see him in full buffalo robes and face paint and the tomahawk pipe, and I look around my life and I'm like, everything's okay. Oh, I'm going to have one of those clients pretty soon. And it'll be somebody with a big heavy thing that comes in. In that, we want to think about they're always available, but like any relationship, we have to work to understand each other and strengthen the connection. Deb and I have been friends for a very long time. One of the reasons, and I want you to catch everything I'm saying here, there have been times that we've gone even years without talking. There are times where we have no idea what's going on in each other's lives. I'd say more often than not, we have no idea what's going on in each other's lives. Except that we actually know each other and have spent enough time connecting and have had enough real talks that without specificity, we know exactly what's going on in each other's lives. We know exactly who the other one is, no matter what the circumstance is. That didn't happen because we bumped into each other one day and said, tag, you're it. That's because we actually sat and talked. We got to know each other. We debated things. We message each other. We call. We see each other. It's a big hug. It's a connection, that sort of thing. When we're talking about your spirit guide, especially that main one, shouldn't they be like your best friend ever? If you're going to have a decent friend, you make time for them. You text them, you call them, you share the intimate parts of your life with them. You say the things to them you don't say to anybody else. And in that, you do the same thing with this main dominant guide. You find a way to connect with them. One of my favorites, and Jan will know, there's two different versions of this. I like having tea. I'm a coffee junkie, but I like having tea. Because to me, it's not about the tea. Although blueberry tea is kind of the deal. I have a nice English tea set, actual silver tea set, tray, all of that, because you guys know if I do something, I'm going to be over the top about it. Cute little cups. One of the reasons that I do that is to unwind. And a lot of times at the end of an evening or whatever, be like, let's have tea and call it an evening and relax. The other thing that I will do is I will have tea with my guides. And the whole time I'm making tea, I'm inviting them. I'm asking them to join me. I'm asking them to be there with me. I might even set out a second cup. I might even pour a cup of tea for them. And I will actually sit down and converse with them. And when I say converse with them, I'm talking out loud to a silver teapot. And if you know anything about me, that silver teapot's talking back. And it's my guide that is joining me there. One of my greatest images, so some of you know the house on the hill. When I say the house on the hill, the meditation to meet your guide. And some of you heard me talk about my house on the hill is now this giant castle on its own island and everything. That's not actually where I go to meet my guide anymore. I have this big bluff with a fire. And I sit across the fire from him. And if I look this way, I can see all of creation and everything that exists. And then there's my guide, and then there's my truth. And I can compare all of those things together to see how they fit together. And so one of the greatest ways I connect with my guide is sitting down, imagining that I'm at a fire, or sitting down to a cup of tea and actually talking with them. I do it in the morning too. I fix a cup of coffee. I have coffee with my guides as well. When I'm saying that, you need to invite them to be there. If I want to be friends with Tracy and I want to interact with her in some way, I need to have some sort of engagement, involvement, connection, do something with her. I'm not going to be much of a friend if I just always go to her and go, here's my problem, tell me what to do. That is not a friendship. That's an abusive relationship. So if we're only going to our guides when we're all twisted up and bothered and wanting them to fix something and make life good for us, then we're not being a very good friend, and we can't really expect them to give a damn now, can we? Except it's their job. You know how people are when they're just doing their job? It's not the same thing as when they're into doing it. We get much more out of it when everybody's happy about the arrangement. And so just like we would with anybody else, any connection we wanted, we have to deepen it. This is Mortis, first name Rigger. This becomes the embodiment of whatever spirit that I'm talking to. This sits on the table beside my chair where I do my readings. So does this without the money. That is so I have a focal point, a physical portal anchor for that spirit to be able to interact with me on the physical plane. That cup of tea is the same thing. Getting to where you have that thing, I'm creating those ley lines, those intersections where the non-physical and the physical converge and meet in that way. This is a great thing to use for that. Some of you are familiar with this. If you want to talk to spirit, you ask them what they have to say, you open it up, and it says, own the self. Well, I think I'm doing that right now. We might meditate to connect with them. And in that moment, every time we're saying our mantra, our prayer, or whatever, we're inviting them. We're creating that space where we can meet. I think one of the greatest things I ever heard somebody say was, have a date with your spirit guide. Not in the moment, not when you're freaking out, not when there's a problem. Tomorrow morning at 10, I'm going to sit down, and I would like for my guide to join me so that we can commune and share with one another. Imagine how much could open up in that moment with no more pressure than, hey, let's hang out. Let's be there, so that we form that connection. One of the coolest things, I think this is cool, is when your spirit guide seems to just want to chat. I don't have anything big to tell you, I just want you to know I'm here. Whenever you have one of those moments from your guide, just the pop in, just the awareness, I think that's one of the coolest things ever, because they feel like you've got it together enough they don't have to course correct you. They just want you to know they're there. That to me is a thumbs up from the spirit world. A lot of times I'll be doing a reading and somebody's grandma or whatever will show up and they'll be like, what's she saying? I'm like, I got nothing. She's just here. Did that description fit? Yeah. Well, then why she's here? Just to let you know she's here. What more do you want? She came all the way from the spirit world just for this moment. Be happy. Validate it. Imagine if you said, oh wow, that's cool that she's here. Imagine the energy that would create instead of why or what. Those are blocking words. Those are doubting words. Those are questioning words. When you get to the point where it's like, yeah, of course, how cool. What do you have to say? Now you're creating an energy of inviting that. So again, we might use the different tools. We might use a Ouija board. In this case, I wouldn't use it. Oh my God, who's got time for all of that nonsense? I would use it to create the focus of energy. Yeah, let's put this one here. Now I'm focusing that energy, drawing them in. Now I might ask them to help me with something. I might ask them to manifest something. I might ask them for guidance or direction. And then I'm going to just walk away from the whole thing and expect that answer to be out there in that regard. Favorite story, I tell it all the time, when Ken showed up at the house. This was the house before this one. Showed up at the house, no appointment. This was when I worked from home. No appointment. Did we catch the turtle, go inside, hide from everybody part? I don't like people just showing up. Knock at the door. Ken freaked out. What's wrong? We're going to lose our house. What do you mean? We're 3 months behind, and me and my wife and our 3 kids are about to be kicked out. How much money do you need? $5,000. Glad that it's no big deal. When do you need it by? Tomorrow. You don't need a reading. You need help. I went and got a candle, got my rattle, got some stuff together, told him to think about all this, picture it, focus on it, believe in it, and we talked about everything going out. We're using candle, we're using rattles, so we're talking about elemental, sending everything out there. I had him light a candle, shaky hand, light a candle. And he looks at me and goes, now what? And I said, get the fuck out of my house, your money's not here. That's what. And as he got ready to leave, I said, but as you're leaving here, look for that money everywhere. I want you to leave looking for a suitcase of money in the ditch. I want you to expect somebody to hand you a winning lottery ticket. I want you to believe that that money, those spirits are putting that in your path somewhere. You just ask them to help. You need to believe that help's going to be there. He called me the next day and said, you won't believe. You should never say that to me. I believe all sorts of stuff. He said, I actually had a job interview I didn't tell you about that day. I walked in the guy's office just to hear him hanging up the phone. He looked up and he goes, my son is never going to grow up. The man is 35 years old. He just called and asked me for $5,000. Ken, I love the guy. He goes, so you didn't give it to him? No. So that means you still have $5,000. Short version of the story, not only got the job, the guy wrote him a check for $5,000 that day sitting there in his office. Now you tell me that wasn't the guides, the angels, the allies going out in front of him and whispering in that guy's ear and whispering in that guy's son's ear to get him to call at just the exact right moment when Ken was going to walk in there so that all the dominoes fell in a way that sent him with the check out the door. You can't make that stuff up. You can write it, but you probably won't be as good at it as reality is. When you get to the point where you're expecting those things to work, and when you're working with these guides and you're sending those things out, it's powerful, but it's the expectation of it working that matters. This guy, this is made out of Mount St. Helens ash, if you guys remember that, if you're old enough for Mount St. Helens. That is the shaman. Don't know his name. That's not my guide. That's the shaman. And for me, that little image embodies absolutely everything that I'm supposed to be. I don't think I'm supposed to be wearing a hat with horns on it. But if you look at his face, he looks like he knows something. He looks like he's in that moment. and there's a slight grin on his face. That's very much the embodiment of living in awareness to me. He doesn't have his eyes open. He's got them closed so he can be aware. He's got a slight grin because he's living in that awareness of everything that's there. And it is the embodiment. Ash is very much earth. Fire from the volcano. It all blew up and settled back down in and congealed into that physical form that's there. I think the only one that was missing was water, except I think there was rain that helped it all come down into the earth at that point. The resin that holds it together, I'd count that too. So I use him as a symbol of everything that I'm supposed to be, everything I'm supposed to live up to. The other one that I use a lot of times is my Petoskey stone. I've carried this since I was 12 years old. And this is my spirit stone. This is for me to connect into each of the dots to me as a different dimension of reality, a different plane of existence. And I'll use this to open up doors between myself and my spirit guides. I'll use this to open up certain frequencies of energies to direct out to what I'm doing. I use this sort of as my tuner. Tune into that guide, tune into that energy I'm using, tune into whatever I'm doing there. I use it in that sort of a way. And I recommend that you have something that is dedicated to your spirit guide or to your angel or to your whatever, that if you're wanting to work with it, it's the only time you get it out. If you've got a deck of tarot cards, don't just leave them laying out and everything like that. I do in my office, but that's what that office is for. Put them away so that the getting them out is the call to them to come in and interact with you in that moment, instead of just thinking that the line's always open and you hope they're still on the other end when you grab it. Having that moment where you're triggering that happening. Now, I've left myself very little time for this, and it's the most important one, but it's actually the easiest one. Our loved ones. When I was out there watering and all this, and I knew some of the people that were going to be here today, talking about loved ones is a pretty big topic. I know looking around this room how big the topic is to a lot of people. I get asked the most about this in my work. When people ask about spirits, they're asking about loved ones. I don't know the percentage, but there's a big percentage of people come to me because they want to connect with the people they've lost. Our emotions tend to get in the way of our communications here. It helps it to not go as deep as it could be. What I mean by that is we all want the very clear and lengthy conversation and feel the hug, and the things are just limited because of being on the two different planes of existence. We want the depth that we have here. We want that person that we've lost to be able to have the conversation just like we're having right now. We want to actually feel that hug that was there. We want to smell that perfume that they wore, or we want to hear that one particular way they would say things. Do you know the one thing that happens when people channel through more than anything else? Sometimes people will go, wow, it's interesting you use those words, but more often they'll go, it's interesting the way you just said that. And a lot of times it's not the way I would say anything. I remember Psychic Fair once, I was sitting there doing this all the way through a reading. I was just like this the whole time. Finally dawned on me. I looked at her and I told her all sorts of stuff about her dead husband. And finally I looked at her and I go, do you know what this is? She goes, oh yeah, he had a skin condition. The last 6 months of his life he did that the entire time. I thought my hand itched until it didn't stop and went on through an entire reading. And then I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this. When we want to connect with them, those emotions are the exact thing that we need to lean into. The thing that is so hard, when I was writing this down, this got to me, so there we are. Put on the shirt of theirs that you kept. Spray their cologne on your pillow. Go to the restaurant that you used to go to. Do the things that you always did with them. One of the first things that we do when we lose people is, oh, that hurts too much. I can't go there. Oh, that hurts too much. I'm going to put these things away because it hurts me to see them. I'm not saying that you need to turn it into a painful thing. But I do think that a little bit of that discomfort breaks through into a different point of awareness and connection. And when we channel the intensity of that loss, and when we channel that missing them, and we channel that deep, heavy emotion that's there, we can then use it, because the fact that that heaviness and that hurt is still there shows that the love connection is still there. And love is the way that we can connect with them most easily. And so we can hear their voices the most plainly of any of them. I've been talking symbology with everybody else, and yeah, the red bird and the pennies and all of that, yes, all day, yes. But your loved ones, they're the ones you can hear. They're the ones you can see. They're the ones that are right there with you. But you're going to connect with them most readily in the places where you had physical connections. Those are the ley lines. Those are the bridges between the physical and the non-physical. I have seen times where the right answer is to move out of the house where both of you lived because it was too much to deal with. And I've seen times where, no, you should stay there because that's where they are and they can connect with you. I know some people fall into both categories. Maybe. But I think that what we've got to look at is that if there's anybody that was ever there around us, it's the people that didn't leave our side when they were here. And so the idea of how do I find them, where have they gone, is entirely the wrong way to look at it. It's that, oh, their voice has changed. I need to hear it in a different way. Oh, their form has changed. I need to let myself see them in a different way. I had somebody come to me just last week or the week before, and I said, the very thing that we've got to do is get you to release and let go of your loved one. And she goes, what do you mean let go of my loved one? And I said, you need to let go of them. You're holding on too tight to them. You're clinging to them. And what that's doing is it's suffocating the energy. I said, I think it was their husband, if I'm recalling the whole story. And I looked and I go, how did he act when you smothered him in person? When you were too clingy and overly emotional, how did he act? Oh, he'd go out to the garage to get away from me. I said, have you considered going out to the garage and not being overly emotional? What would you do in the garage? Well, you'd usually go out there and have a beer. I said, have you ever thought about going out to the garage and having a beer? Have you ever thought about just going out there and sitting, having a beer in the place that you go to get away from you when you were like this? I understand why you're like this. I'm not saying it's bad. But didn't he try to get away from that? Yes, he did. When did he like being around you the most? Oh, we always had our moment, not sex, but we were just laying in bed and we were right there together. Then go lay down in the bed. Ask him to come and be with you. Have the connection that you always shared with one another. Don't expect them to suddenly be different. It's why I don't put loved ones in the same category as spirit guides. Because your dead grandma is going to give you dead grandma advice. Well, sweetie, you can be anything you want to be. No, you can't. No, this is a lie you've been told. You cannot be anything. You can be a whole lot of things. You can be amazing things, but can you be anything? No. Could I be a Baptist minister? Let's think that through for a moment.
Do you want to?
Even if I did. When we think about dealing with our loved ones, we deepen the connection by including them. What I said about setting the cup of tea or whatever, holidays, we set a plate at my house for the ones we've lost. On major spiritual occasions, we set a plate for the ones that we've lost. I put whatever food on it. When we're done with the celebration, I throw the food in the yard so that nature can reclaim it. One of the best ones I ever saw was, and the end of this story is crazy, and I'm used to crazy stories. My hairdresser's, one of her, it was a reception person. Brother died, very young. And the brother and sister had a thing about traveling together. They would go to different places together to experience things and all that. The brother was cremated. The sister got I'm going to call it a lockable urn and a backpack And her and her brother went on all of the trips that they decided to go on before he died. She actually physically took him on every single trip. Now the cool part was that when she would tell that story, she could go into specifics. And she'd go, yep, and we were sitting there and out of nowhere somebody said, hey, do you know that they've got this on the menu and it was his favorite dish? Or somebody would say, hey, let's turn on the radio, and it would be his favorite song. He was there and he would show up in whatever was going on. The way I learned about the story was my hairdresser calls me one day, and no, it was posted on Facebook, and she goes, it was something about how the backpack had been stolen. Can you imagine? You want to see me channel some elementals, steal my loved one that's in my backpack, lightning out of the eyes is what I'm talking about here. And she was obviously distraught, very, very upset. This thing hits me. I call Christy, as my hairdresser. Sorry I'm keeping you all late. I call Christy and I go, do you think that she would mind a message from me? She goes, I don't think so. Here's her number. So I call this person I didn't know. And I said, your brother says he's not gone. Look under the tree. I expected her to go, what tree? And she goes, oh, okay. She wasn't even in town. She had been traveling when the backpack was stolen. She went back to the park where it disappeared, went to the tree that she had noticed, and it was sitting there with her brother. Other stuff was gone. I'm guessing somebody felt pretty guilty. I would. I actually brought the backpack back for them to be there. I have here, and I would like for everybody to do this. I know I'm keeping you, but if everybody would stand up just one brief moment. And if we could just sort of, everybody come up here, because we want to form a circle, hold hands, and we'll do it around our lovely altar space. So circle on in. Let's all grab each other here. Grab, 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 grab. So I want us all just take a couple breaths. Think about building the energy. Wherever two or more are gathered, and we certainly got more than that. Think about the idea that we may have all come here for our own reasons, but we also all came for the same reasons. I want you to think about that light that's within you. And then imagine placing that light as a ball in the center of the circle. Eyes are closed. Imagine a bright white light, the light of Spirit, the light of God, the light of the universe. I want you to imagine that ball growing until it fills the entire center of this circle. And as you breathe those slow, deep breaths and you stare into that light, seeing it in your mind, but seeing it in the center of the circle as well, I want you to ask for a loved one who's on the other side to come and join you and to be with you. And I want you to imagine that stepping out from that light is that person themselves. Until you have the loved one, the person that you've missed, the person that you've called out to, standing directly in front of you. And I want you to imagine that you look into their eyes and your thoughts become their thoughts. Their breath becomes your breath. And you begin to feel and to hear them and to connect with them. Just ask them if there's anything that they want to say to you right now. And then eyes closed. I want you to imagine that we begin to release one another's hands, holding our arms out in front of us. And imagine that person stepping in and the actual physical embrace that would be there. Let yourself feel their presence. Let yourself hear their words. Take a deep breath. Let yourself even smell them. Just let them be here right now. To the spirits who have come to us, we love you and we know that you're with us. We know that you always travel with us. We know that you're always available to us. And we love you. Just let the eyes open. Let's all go back to our space for just a second. We want to talk about deepening that connection? That was a very brief moment of exercise, but we all had that energy together that was there. So we figure out how to increase that energy. I'm not against a full-out shrine to somebody that I've lost. Make no bones about that. I got a little shrine to my dog that I lost. I think that we want to have those ways to reach out and connect. I asked Tracy to bring this in. Last thing I wanted to show you. This is a labradorite heart. And the reason I wanted to bring this in is because labradorite is one of my favorite stones. But a heart, when we're talking about our loved ones that we've lost, if you don't want to do a full-out shrine in your house or something like that, I recommend you get an object. This could represent the urn that my friend carried in the backpack. This could represent our portal of energy to connect. It wouldn't have to be this. This is the example, because it's a heart. Imagine something that symbolizes the connection of the person that you love, resting there with that candle that you burn to show the love and connection that the two of you have, and some personal object or a picture of them. Think about when you need that connection with them. You go to that little space you've created. You light that candle. You see that light. We all just saw it there without the candle. You see that and allow them to step out and to talk to you and to visit with you and to connect with you and to give you that hug and give you that little bit of something. And then you blow the candle out. Not that they're gone forever, but because we know that they can't maintain that physical presence in that same way, but that they're always there to come back to us when we need them to. And in that moment, we're working with our loved ones. We're not just missing them. We're not just wishing that. We're actually doing something to connect. So we've got a bridge, the physical and the non-physical. We've got all these different forms of allies that are there. We realize they can come in to help us. They can go out to do something. The one thing that I hate about this workshop, and I'm also glad about it because it's the way that it had to be, we had to end with this one, and we ended on a heavy note. And I don't usually do that, but it wouldn't have done us much good to start there. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate every single one of you.
Thank you.
Let me know if you've got questions. If you are doing the download thing, send us some feedback. Let us know about the quality of everything. I think Jan's a whiz at it and probably has it figured out perfect, but I like hearing good stuff. And if there's anything that you found out today that you need some specific help with, get hold of one of us and we'll book you in here and work you through it. Thank you all for coming.